Hi there, welcome to my Yoga Sissel yoga space. I have had a request for a video about breathing and a simple breathing exercise, and what I want to share is what's called the yogic breathing, or the three-part breathing. And I teach this in most of my classes. I teach this with with almost everyone I work with, also my private clients, because I find this to be a really easy and accessible practice for activating your diaphragm and for bringing the breath down deep into all corners of your lungs. And because I find that if we only think of breathing into our bellies, then often it becomes very two-dimensional and it becomes just and sometimes it can almost, I have in the past at least, found that can just bloat me. It's almost like I'm like swallowing the air, like I want to put it into my stomach. Whereas if I find this yogic three-part breathing, I really bring the breath down into my back, and I find it much more helpful for feeling a sense of expansion within my lungs. I really loved using this when I was pregnant, and I teach it to my prenatal students, because when we're growing a baby, often we'll feel like there's not a lot of space, like as the baby grows and there's less and less space to breathe for the lungs. It's as if there's still space at the back, like baby's not growing at the back, it's growing at the front. And so it's like, where can we find a little bit more space? In the back. So let's try and breathe into the back. And I find it incredibly grounding and calming. So when I've been after having given birth, I love doing this breathing because it's just a natural, soothing way to breathe. You can do it while you're breastfeeding in the middle of the night to just keep you calm. And that's what breathing does. It helps to calm us, it helps to relax us. And this three-part breathing exercise is it's like kind of like if you equate it to doing sit-ups or push-ups or pull-ups or whatever sort of exercise you do to work a specific muscle. You're not doing it all the time. You're not constantly walking around just flexing, or flexing. So think of it as an exercise, and you just do it a few times, and I find that is enough to release tension from our diaphragm, release tension from belly, and it also even massages into our lower backs. And what's also interesting is the effect that it has on our organs. So when we breathe naturally, when our diaphragm is able to contract naturally as it wants to in our natural breathing, plays a very important role in massaging our digestive organs. And I also read that it's been shown that our kidneys, I think it's like up to 3 or even 6 centimeters by this breathing. 6 centimeters is quite a lot, right? But by breathing, because it's being massaged. And so this is a way of nurturing your inner organs, and when not only nurturing them so that they are getting oxygenated because we're breathing properly, but also because when we're giving that massage, when we're able to breathe, it also releases tension, and it helps the circulation so that our organs also get nourished from I guess it is the oxygenation, but they're fed by the blood, and it also helps to detoxify, and so it just does all these good things. But I digress. Let's get back to why we're here, which is to breathe. So I'm going to show you first sitting, but notice that especially if you are very tight or in your chest, if you notice that you breathe and your shoulders lift, and you might find it a little bit hard to do this sitting up, because when we're sitting, our stomach muscles are engaged to support our posture. And so I'll start because it's easier to demonstrate sitting up, but then I'll also show you lying down on your bellies, because you might find that even easier. So what you do is, if you imagine that your body is split into 3 sections, so there's the lower half, and I'm going to talk about this as being your I'm going to direct that into your lower back, but it's basically down towards your tailbone, down and towards your pelvis. So you want this depth. And then the second part is into the sides, so the side ribs, sort of expanding outwards into the left and the right sides of your body. And then the third is the top. And especially because when you're breathing down, the first part you're breathing down towards the back, I like the third part to think of breathing in up towards the collarbones, the top of the chest, but even the tops of your shoulders and underneath your shoulder blades. And so with your torso split into these three parts, so the bottom, the middle, the top, you're also going to split your inhalation into three parts. And I'm going to cue it that you split a breath for the count of 9, but you're going to split that into 3 sections. So that's 1, 2, 3 into the bottom. And there's going to be a pause for a count. And then you're going to split it into, basically, it actually becomes a count of 12, really, doesn't it? So there's count of 3, and there's a pause. And then you into the sides for another count of 3, and you pause. And it's the same inhalation into the top, pause, and then you just simply let the exhalation find its own way out. Nice and easy. And then you continue, you do it again. It's the same continued inhalation, broken up into 3 stages with a pause in the middle or in between, and then you let it go. So if you want to join me, taking a seat, getting comfortable. I'm sitting on a cushion because having the hips higher than the knees makes it easier to sit upright, and that's a much easier posture to breathe in. And then you start with a natural inhalation in through your nose, and a natural exhalation through your nose. And then we breathe in, down to the tailbone, pause, continue breathing into the sides of your ribs, pause, and continue breathing all the way up to the top to your collarbones, pause, and let it all go. And breathing in through your nose to the bottom, pause, continue breathing to the sides, pause, filling up into the top of your lungs, pause, and let it all go. One more time, breathing in through your nose, breathe it down the tail. Pause. Breathe into the sides. Pause. Breathe into the top. Pause. And let it go. And you do that 3-5 times, that's enough. And then you just sit for a moment and notice how your breathing feels afterwards. How does the natural breath now feel? As I promised, I'm going to try this. I'm going to demonstrate it lying down. You won't be able to see my face. I hope you can still hear me. So here, and then again it's still. So now you'll have the resistance of the floor. You have the resistance of the floor underneath you. You have the weight of your body on top of you. And not only does our nervous system respond differently when we're lying on our belly, so that already triggers a relaxation response. But then, breathing against the resistance of the floor and your body weight, your diaphragm is going to have to work even more on your inhalations, but then it's going to be even more relaxing for your diaphragm as you breathe out, because you'll have these two resistance to help move the air out. So that in itself becomes very de-stressing for your breathing. And because you have the resistance of the floor, your belly can't really expand into the floor, so it's easier to direct the breath into your lower back. So let's give it a shot. So resting your head can feel nice to, I show it from this way, to really expose your diaphragm by stacking 2 fists on top of each other, elbows out to the side, and then resting your head on top of the fists, in which case you'll take your feet out wide and drop your heels in. This is called crocodile pose. You can also just rest your head on your hands, and hands flat. And so from here, take a natural breath in through your nose. Natural breath out. And we begin. So inhaling all the way down to your tail. Pause. Continue breathing into the sides of your ribs. Pause. Now breathe all the way up to your collarbones and underneath your shoulder blades. Pause. And let it all go. One more time, breathe down to your tail. Pause. Breathe into the sides of your ribs. Pause. Breathe all the way up. Pause. And let it go. So you might even be able to see that as I breathe in, all the way down, you can see my lower back filling up. And then as I breathe into the middle, there's more fullness along my back. And then as I breathe into the top, you might not be able to see, it's a little bit hard. Top of the spine, and then let it all go. So that is a really, really simple breathing exercise that you can do anytime. And while this video is going on for about 10 minutes, the actual breathing exercise will take you 5. And I hope you have enjoyed this. If you have any questions, get in touch and enjoy your natural breathing.